The Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment meeting for March 17th, 2016. Our first order of business is to receive the minutes of the March 3rd, 2016 meeting. May I hear a motion?
I move to receive the minutes.
Yes, you can.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive the minutes. The minutes are received. Next item of business is continuance or withdrawal requests from staff.
Have none.
Hearing none from staff, I would ask whether the public has any requests for continuance and withdrawals. And I would also notify you that we are meeting today with less than a full board. So that may influence, your desire to either continue your case or modify it in some way. Are there any continuance or withdrawal requests from the public? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the first case.
Item 1, case 14140, request of Check Hall Investment Partners for a variance to the site lighting requirements at 601 North Check Hall Road.
Hello again. My name is Fiona Halter, and I'm with GBT Realty Corporation. I just want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to come back and further this discussion. I apologize, it's been a little longer than I originally talked about. I had foot surgery immediately following our last meeting. But I know we talked about a number of things, and the board had concerns and wanted additional information, specifically about lighting standards and how it does relate to safety, the proximity of the residential, and we specifically talked about the residential to the east. Also, just wanting, what I heard is wanting additional information about national retail standards in existing centers within this area. And as we discussed, I'm not a lighting expert. So with me today, there's a team of people. Jeff Pape, who heads up the shopping center division for GBT Realty Corporation. We also have Holly Schimmel and Joseph Hawkins from WLS Lighting, and Brett Maschak with Academy Outdoor and Sports. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Each of you that speak today, if you would just give us your name and address for the record.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. Jeff Pape with GBT Realty, 9010 Overlook Boulevard, Brentwood, Tennessee. I am also not the lighting expert, so I'm just going to say a few things and then turn it over to our lighting experts. As I think, unfortunately, Fiona was the only one attended before, so we didn't, but obviously our concern is safety in the parking lots, and I know your concern is setting a precedent and not getting it too bright, and we're trying to balance it out. So one of the things that was submitted between the last meeting and now is essentially a study by the Department of Justice, federal government, from back in the 90s, where they kind of set, if you go before the 90s, a lot of shopping centers were a lot darker and not quite as bright, and there were safety concerns, and they did the study, and their recommended area for general parking, it's in Table 1 on page 4, is for the IESNA, is 5-foot candles minimum for parking areas for safety purposes. And that's kind of the general standard. I'll let the folks from WLS Lighting talk a little bit more about the general standards that retail typically has and how it's 5, and we've asked for 3. So we are trying to balance it. We are trying to make sure that we're not getting too bright and creating any challenges for any of the neighborhood areas and that type of thing. We also, and I think Fiona probably mentioned this the first time, but we can do a lot with shields and everything. I believe the code is for 0.3-foot candles at a property line. We've certainly offered to make sure we're 0-foot candles at the property lines. That can be done through shields and other such things. But Academy Sports will also talk about, they're the lead tenant in the shopping center, and it's their standards that typically require 5, and they've been willing to back down to 3 on this. But of course, the safety of their customers is one of the main concerns. So with that, I'm here to answer any other questions relative to the shopping center side, but I'll turn it over to Brett from Academy, and then we'll have the folks from WLS also speak a little bit. Thank you. And of course, we're here for any questions once we're done speaking.
Good afternoon. Brett Maschak with Academy Sports and Outdoors. Address is going to be 1800 North Mason Road, Katy, Texas, 77449. Just wanted to come before the board today just to realize, safety is the utmost important for our customers. We want to have a well-lit parking lot so that the customers will feel safe to come there to shop and not have any issues. We We've had issues in the past with certain parking lots in certain areas, so we like to make sure that the lighting and everything makes it a safe environment so that no one will be offended or hurt or anything while we're there. So as Jeff had mentioned, our standards are 5-foot candles throughout the 15 states that we are currently located in, and we're willing to adjust that and look at the 3-foot candle level, which I believe is pedestrian, which we feel like our entire parking lot is pedestrian because our clients will be walking through the parking field to get to their cars on a nightly basis. Thank you.
You said you have it in all of your academy parking lots all over the United States, is that correct?
Yes.
What about here in the Oklahoma City and the Oklahoma areas?
I know that the lighting people did studies on that. They are all well above the standards currently right now.
So in Oklahoma City, you're saying you don't know what they are, though?
I don't know exactly what they are, but I know they are above the current standards that you guys have in your code.
At 1.5?
They're above that, yes.
All the academies that are here were in existence prior to this ordinance requirement.
That would be true. The two, I believe, that are here are older stores.
Good afternoon, Holly Schimmel, WLS Lighting,
You
1919.
can pull that microphone down where we can, there you go.
1919 Windsor, Fort Worth, Texas. Joseph and I went out last night and did some light level readings on some shopping centers, and they were well above the 1.5. And one of them was, it was a Target center, and it was around 3.5 average. So I think that the standards at 1.5 is not real safe for an average.
But my understanding is the 1.5 is not the entire parking lot areas. The areas that are designated as sidewalks, I think, are allowed a brighter illumination. Am I correct? So where were your measurements taken?
The measurements were taken at what centers or at what level?
Not only what centers, but where around that property. If you were close to the building or around
Oh, yes,
sidewalks,
sir.
then
We
they
were out
were
in the middle of
allowed
the parking
greater
lot.
illumination.
We were in the middle of the parking lot.
In the middle of the parking lot?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, but we don't know, I mean, I don't know what center you were at, but as, JJ, when did this particular ordinance come into existence?
It's probably been 3 years.
Okay. So, no way for us to know whether or not that center was before 3 years ago. I'm sure that it was probably built before 3 years ago. So we understand that there may be some centers that are outside the confines of this ordinance, but that's because they probably pre-existed the ordinance.
Okay.
And we don't go around policing that per se, because those are essentially grandfathered properties, but being new construction, you're being subjected to the new ordinance.
Right. And some of the national retailers have a higher foot candle standard, which is like anywhere from 3.5 to 5. So I have some Kohl's and Walmart here that are current, if y'all would like to see them.
JJ, could you help explain why the ordinance was amended 3 years ago? Did the ordinance actually reduce the number of foot candles?
I don't think prior to the new ordinance we had a lighting requirement other than there was a requirement to light certain uses at night for a certain period of time, but I don't think there was a minimum or maximum foot candle in the ordinance.
Do you recall or can you comment on how 1.5 was decided on, or what the basis for the council's decision to adopt that as the ordinance was?
I don't know where the 1.5 came from.
Janice, do you have any insight there at all, just in terms of anything you may know?
Well, what I recall about it is that, there was concern about the fact that shopping areas, and especially gas stations and uses like that, were getting brighter and brighter and brighter, and becoming, more and more of, I don't want to use the word nuisance, but intrusion into surrounding properties. And so it was felt that it was time to adopt some standards. I'm really confident that that was not done without extensive input from the industry. If we need to have staff come and give us, their side of this story, maybe we should do that. I can understand that people who are in the sales business want their products illuminated at the maximum that they can, have that done. And I don't mean to minimize the concerns about safety and so forth. I'm not sure that those are as much of a concern in places like Oklahoma as they might be someplace else. I don't know. But, we're sort of a wide open spaces kind of place. We're not talking about parking garages and, dark nooks and crannies and, that kind of thing. But I have to say, well, maybe I should wait. That's what I would say about that.
Mr. Chairman, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of the application?
No one has signed up. Is there anybody else from the public here to speak on this matter? I see nobody. The thing that I would, and I know safety for your customers, and you're thinking lighting the parking field appropriately at a higher level than the 1.5 is going to contribute to safety. And, more light, may, but I think, in an environment like this, safety for your consumers is more than just more light. It's, if you look at the other large retail, environments here in the city, it's often a combination of, they have a security patrol vehicle that is in the parking lot, and they may have a tower and things like that. So I think, portraying lighting as the only thing that contributes to public safety, I think maybe is a little misleading. I think, when you have a large parking area like that, too, there are probably other things that, the tenants or the owner would do to, do everything they could to assure safety for their customers.
Well, I am persuaded to some degree that lighting might be the most important element in terms of deterring crime. There are some comparisons I could draw that are pretty typical, at least in the avenues of real estate that I see, things like air conditioner cages, for example, versus not having them. The same can be said for lighting. I mean, I have seen industrial properties that were plagued by property crimes and other issues that when OG&E was brought in to install, I don't know what the foot candles are because I'm not a lighting expert either, but when I call them and I ask for the brightest light they can possibly give me. And that does help eliminate a lot of that crime. So I think my concern is that I'm not sure that the elements for a variance here are going to be met. It's going to be very difficult for them to attain that, in my opinion. But I'm more concerned that we have a standard here that may be truly below what national retailers are expecting to see, and that could affect development and other things as a result of a fear for crime. I mean, that's my concern. And it's relatively new. I haven't been on the board terribly long, about a year, but I've never seen one of these. So I don't know if we've had other examples of that, if you guys have seen other instances of this yet before or not.
What I was going to say earlier was that having looked through this material, I mean, it's, very comprehensive and in-depth and so on. We asked them for information. They brought it with a vengeance. But having looked through it, what I see is perhaps information that ought to be used to see if the current standards that we have are appropriate rather than to justify, a variance in this particular case. I don't see anything unique about what is presented here.
I can tell you in talking with planning about this case, they indicated that they are going to look at modifying this ordinance and are going to use more of an approach of site design to prevent crime. And it will most likely, this number will go up. It's not going to help them at all because
Well, it
you're
depends on
looking
the
at
timing.
a
We've
year
got a
to
while
8
before we build in the
months
parking
to
lot.
accomplish that.
If I could just address a few points, you're absolutely correct, Mr. Austin, that lighting is not the only issue relative to safety. We operate shopping centers all over the place, and there's lots of different things you need to do, but lighting does fall at the very top of what helps make them safe. Another thing is when you start talking about the 1.5 foot candle levels and stuff, in order to maintain that 1.5, obviously you've got lights spread out every 50 feet or so in a parking lot, and to maintain that, you don't have a consistent level of light throughout the parking lot. So to keep that 1.5 maintained, you have many areas of the parking lot that are between 0 and half a foot candle. And so you get these dark spots. And yes, this is not an overly, concerning crime area, but creating dark spots in that is one of the biggest challenges. And one of the things that I've seen in my almost 25 years of developing shopping centers is a focus more on trying to get consistent lighting levels as well. It's not as much, there's certainly plenty of retailers. Best Buy is a great example. They raised their standards to 10-foot candle minimum 10, 12 years ago. That was not a safety. That was a marketing thing. They wanted to be the brightest store there. They wanted to get everybody's attention. The 5-foot candle is kind of where everybody is settled on the safety thing based on the federal government recommendations. We're asking for lower because we do think we can still maintain a safe facility. But the 1.5 level, I just want to make sure we're on record. We feel like that falls below the safety levels to maintain a safe environment at night. These stores are going to be open until 10 o'clock or so, and it's going to create enough dark areas because of the inability. I mean, I'd have to put lights every 10 feet or so. And keep in mind, for us as a developer also, going with 1.5 foot candles versus 3 is less expensive for us. It's the easy way out, but we want to create a safe environment. It's cheaper for us to maintain that 1.5. We put less lights in. It's less maintenance for us. Ultimately, it's a less expensive thing for us. But we're just trying to create a safe and correct environment for the customers of the shopping center.
I have a question. You have submitted and noted on your plan. Thank you very much for supplemental information. I never found the standard number that was on INS or ASHRAE type standards, but it did note your outlying areas that are adjacent to you are mostly vacant. There's not much surrounding your land. Can you describe that a little more carefully?
Correct. There's some residential a little bit to the west, kind of southwest, but that's removed probably 500 or 600 feet at a minimum. Obviously you have the interstate directly to the north and kind of east. You have Check Hall Road, and then you have residents on the other side of Check Hall Road to the east. But again, those residential areas kind of sit lower, so there's topographic barriers. There's also the street that forms a barrier. And again, obviously, we can set the lights so that there's 0-foot candles at the property line. We've done that with numerous shopping centers, and that's not a problem. Now, that doesn't change the fact that, if you live in a neighborhood that can see the shopping center from there, you do see an area of light. But typically the way we do it is it tends to be non-intrusive. Another important thing, I know you guys were submitted the fixture cut. We use what are called the shoebox fixtures, where the element sits up within the fixture and the element is not down and exposed. So that creates a softer light form and it spreads it a little more evenly. So there's lots of things we do to try to minimize the effect outside of the shopping center.
One other thing, when I was reading some of these, the article, the Justice article and that kind of thing, and maybe some other reviews that I was kind of trying to look at, trying to see the standards, it appears to me that the recommendation might be 2-foot candles in the parking area proper. Have you read that anywhere, the minimum of 2 as opposed to 1?
There is
As opposed to 3 or 5 is what I'm talking about.
There's a minimum simply for people driving and being able to function with their cars and everything that's 2. That's why we submitted the Department of Justice one that's focused more on safety. So you're right, 2-foot candles is enough to function and drive around where you're not going to be running into things or walk around without tripping over things. But that's where the Department of Justice did the study and said, yeah, 2 is enough to function, but from a safety perspective and to try to maintain where you don't have dark spots and dark areas, that's where the 5 came from. So you're right, there are different recommendations depending on what your goal is, what your end goal is. Absolutely.
JJ, my recollection about how the parking lot design standards are set up is that we're actually trying to move toward sort of designated walkways and pedestrian ways. And it sounds to me a little bit like we're kind of in conflict here. They're talking about maintaining, a blanket overall, amount, and and saying that, the entire parking lot is a pedestrian walkway, and whereas we are really trying to focus on both with landscaping and lighting, and also just for safety, pathways for pedestrian use. So as I understand the lighting ordinance that we have, it melds with that so that the lighting on the pedestrian pathways is permitted to be higher than the sort of overall blanket level of lighting in the parking lot. And it sounds to me like what they're suggesting, that the entire parking lot is a pedestrian walkway, would be absolutely contrary to what we're trying to achieve.
I think my recollection was when we did when planning did the lighting ordinance, it was more focused on light pollution than anything else. And I don't even know that safety or crime prevention even came into the picture.
And Ms. Powers, I think you're right on track. But so, like, if you imagine a big shopping center that's got all the bays of parking and everything, and typically we'll do a sidewalk maybe every third or fourth bay down into it, so we could light those at 3-foot candles, and that would get us to a level that we felt was a lot more safe. But imagine if you were the one parked the 2 bays over, and, to hit our minimums, that falls down to the half-foot candle or something. I mean, it just creates shadow areas, it creates difficult areas that somebody could hide and attack somebody as they're coming to their car, or, grab their purse or something to that effect. And so, we do think of it as, we hate to just look at it and say, yeah, we're going to keep the sidewalk nice and bright, but then when you walk 2 bays over, which would be 60 to 100 feet, all of a sudden it gets dark and it's not quite as safe. It just makes sense to us that in a parking lot, if everybody's got to walk to their car, so every car space is tied to pedestrian traffic when you're walking out of a store. So, I think you're right. I think it makes more sense to balance it and have a more even thing than try to separate pedestrian areas versus the parking areas.
I was saying.
Well,
and I mean, the parking lot designs that I have seen, consistent with the standards that we're trying to promote for parking lot design, you're not walking a long way from a sidewalk to your car. There's a sidewalk maybe in front of your car that you're pulling up to, and there's a walkway there for you.
Right, but this size shopping center, there's no way to have a sidewalk in front of every car.
Well,
you
say that, but
well, I mean, the code doesn't require that. And
pathway, I mean.
okay,
not-
so if we did that, if we put a pathway next to every car, then we could theoretically have 3-foot candles over top of every car, which covers the entire parking lot. So what's the difference in what we're saying versus what you're saying? I
I'm
guess is my
talking
question.
about lighting the pathway. I'm not talking about lighting every car.
Right, but to light a 5-foot wide pathway, the light it's going to be almost impossible to just light that. And if you're lighting a pathway that ties to every car, that light's going to spill over, and then you're going to have another pathway right over here, and that light's going to spill over, and you're going to end up with a 3-foot candle average across that entire parking lot. I can almost guarantee that, if you do that, which gets us right back to what we're saying. Does that make sense or not?
Not to me, but I'm not.
How would you light just the?
I'm not a lighting expert.
Right, but I guess, imagine yourself walking in a parking lot. I mean, I guess you could put floodlights just shining on nothing but the sidewalk. Well, that's what we do. But the higher you put them up, the more the light spreads. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
This is a way out of turn, but this is a faulty ordinance, is what this really amounts to. There is no way that it was intended that it would limit that a standard would be limited across an entire spectrum of property to develop retail, and probably what shouldn't be persuasive to me, but is, to my point, is that all the other shopping centers that predate this, now I grant you they got out of control, which is what caused the ordinance, but the ordinance went too far the other direction, and now it's out of sync and out of step with what people that are doing this are doing on a regular basis, and it's creating a conflict that I don't think was necessarily intentional. I don't know what the difference between, I could not tell you what the foot candles of this room is. Couldn't tell you. But I know that if people from the development and people from the tenant are willing to voice concern about our limits as it relates to the development, I think we're probably low. As it sits, though, I feel really hamstrung here because there's no way to solve element number 2. So I can't go beyond the boundaries of what our authority is, which is to provide a variance when certain conditions are met and grant this. I would just express to, and I'm sort of directing this to you, Janice, just because of your role, dual role on the Planning Commission, I really think this needs to be looked at. If somebody from Academy is going to come from Katy to try and address this, I fear that it's something that we're going to see more of, and it's going to be a concern of more folks. I've never asked OG&E what my foot candle is on my 1,000-watt light I want at my parking lots in my industrial facilities. I just want the light because it'll stop the crime. And there's a balance there. We need to figure out where we've missed it. But I can't support the application because a variance isn't appropriate given our limitations. It's not because I don't want to. It's because we're limited. I don't know if there's another recommendation we can make to try and prevent them from being unnecessarily held up. But, I mean, is this something that they could, question, is this something they could go back through the PUD process and amend? Is that possible in this instance? Not that it would be granted. Is it possible?
It's possible to request an amendment, a minor amendment to the PUD. We wouldn't adjust anything over 20%.
Administratively, you mean?
Administratively.
But they could go back through the...
Of course.
Okay. So we're not leaving you without a path. And I know this is probably extremely frustrating, but we cannot possibly, there is no way that you can articulate to me in any way, I would articulate it for you if I could, that there is something peculiar about this piece of property. It's a blanket ordinance that applies to all retail in the city. So I'm not a city council person, and this isn't the city council, so I can't just make it up.
I agree. This is an ordinance before us, and if we were to grant yours on the 3-foot candles, and the next person, there'd be a long line all the way to the back, and so the change would have to be via the legislative change review.
It sounds like...
And
No, I understand. Obviously, you guys have your legal boundaries that you have to work within, and we understand that. It sounds like maybe a better thing to do is instead of you guys acting, is we almost indefinitely table this application, because I'd prefer not to, especially if planning is going to relook at the ordinance. I don't think it makes sense for anybody to have a denial for a variance simply because it was brought forward. It might be best to pull this application back for the time being. We'd be glad to come and work with staff and bring our entire team to discuss that, and even recommend other third-party consultants to work with that. The good news is we've got time before we have to build these parking lots.
Is that a recommendation for a motion to withdraw?
Yes.
Well, or continue.
To continue for now while we pursue whether other opportunities. I don't want to fully withdraw just in case, but I think for now maybe tabling it and letting us continue to discuss and just see.
Let's just continue it indefinitely.
Continue indefinitely, right, not to a specific meeting. And again, we offer our entire team to come meet with staff and talk about a possible change to the ordinance. I don't know what kind of time frame that takes, but again, it's cheaper for us to build it this way. We just think it's the right thing, and I think you are going to run into this more as more retail comes forward, because it's a fairly new ordinance. And I would guess in the past there were no standards. I didn't go back to try to find a copy of the old code, but that's very common. We develop in a lot of places, and in a lot of places there were not foot candle standards. It was simply, are you lighting your parking lot? Yes, we are. Fair enough. And move on. And more municipalities have put standards in place, and it's been a struggle for them to figure out the balance between lighting pollution and safety. It's not an easy thing to do, and we understand that. And believe me, we're trying to make that fine balance too, because the brighter it gets, the more expensive it is for us, and we're not a nonprofit organization. We're trying to make money here, so we're constantly trying to balance safety versus the economics of it.
Thank you very much. I would entertain a motion to continue case 14140 indefinitely.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You are continued.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Item 2, case 14182, request of Jonathan and Annie Middlebrooks for a variance to side setbacks located at 1401 Northwest 16th Street.
Yes, sir. Just give us your name and address for the record and speak to your application.
Good afternoon. I'm Colin Fleck. I'm an architect. I'm working with the applicants Annie and Jonathan Middlebrooks.
Tell us what you want to do.
Yeah, so this application is for a variance for the front and side yard setbacks on a residential lot at Northwest 16th and Douglas, as indicated on the map up there. There's an existing 2.5-story bungalow house that was built in 1909, and it currently encroaches the front and side yard setbacks. The owner would like to remove the existing home and rebuild a new home in the existing footprint of that house. We don't feel that it would cause any damage to the neighborhood or encroach on anyone's rights or any plans for the future. And we really just are trying to keep within the fabric of the neighborhood and just maintain historic lines more than anything.
There's no longer the second dwelling, so in your request, you no longer have that request for and to permit 2 dwellings on one lot. Is that
That's
now
correct,
just one
yes.
dwelling since you
Yes.
are going to demolish the house?
That's correct. The original application had a different design, and that was actually keeping the house and adding on to with a garage apartment as well.
Is that why it was continued so many times, because of the attempt to try to redesign it? Is that what was going on?
Yes.
Okay, I just couldn't remember.
After some selective demolition for investigation of the structure, the plan had to change. So that's why it got continued.
Nobody has signed up. Anybody here to speak on this matter from the public? Nobody.
I'll move for approval. I think this does meet our requirements, the presence of the accessory oversized right-of-way and the fact that the existing house itself encroaches, justify the grant of variance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the application. Register your vote. You're approved.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Okay.
Item 3, case 14-194, request of Jeff Struble for a variance to the minimum driveway width, angle, and street and radius located at 1804 Northwest 16th Street.
Welcome back, just in time.
Yes, thank you. Jeff Struble, 1916 Northwest 18th. Let me catch my breath. Sorry, I'm just barely made it. Since we made this proposal, we found out that we have a open alley. So we are looking at having that approach as a one-way going back and then being able to exit out onto Indiana. So I guess the variance would just be the 5-foot radius on the radius.
So you're no longer wanting to narrow the drive and provide the gate in your plan?
What he's saying is it's one way now, so they don't need a variance for
One way,
that.
because you're going down the alley.
The only request now is for the radius.
So we have all that submitted to Michael Philbrook with Urban Design. So that hadn't been approved yet, but like I said, just the variance, all we need is just on the radius now.
Again, to ask, make sure I understand this, you're not needing to narrow the width of the driveway? Because I understood there were 3 things that were being requested. The
discussion, the primary concern, as I recall, was the width and the fact that it would only allow one car to pass.
I'm sorry, I guess when I say driveway, what I really mean is the skirt? Is that what they call where the driveway actually hits the street?
You had the width, the radius, and then the angle.
Yeah, I think the 5-foot radius and then the angle of the
The
driveway.
angle.
The third was, so just the angle and the radius.
And the variance on the driveway width goes away.
Correct.
Okay, so it's the 2 things, the angle and the radius. And what I don't see in here, I guess, is anything that really addresses the need, the issue of the hardship or the need on the angle and the radius. Is it just that you don't want to rebuild the access point?
No, that's all new. I guess is the infill building on a 50-foot lot. So that's where it becomes a little,
But why does that require that you angle the entry? That's the part I'm not getting.
Let me interrupt for just a second. He indicated that this case is going to be heard, and so they will hear or consider the radius and the angle. Am I correct?
Well, it's with Michael Philbrook right now reviewing it, because it changed with the alley being open. It makes it where now we can have a one-way driveway approach. So he's reviewing that right now.
They previously approved
They
application.
approved it through urban design, and they were in favor of the variance.
I just didn't know whether urban design needed to hear this again and that we would, take their recommendations and act on it, or whether we were in a position to go ahead and act on this today.
Let me ask staff, because I think that's who I really need to. Is it because they have so little room between the edge of the driveway and their property line that in order to make the radius, they have to tilt the approach? Is that what's really talking about here?
The radius, if it went straight out, the radius would extend in front of the neighboring property.
I see,
And you would
okay.
have to have an agreement from that property owner to allow that to happen.
Okay, so that's the necessity.
The necessity.
Because they're
Just
close.
scoot it over to get the radius completely on the applicant's property.
And as a practical matter, what is the ramification of having only a 5-foot radius as opposed to a 10-foot radius?
At this location, for a small office, I don't feel there is any. 10-foot radius is the standard for a commercial driveway. 5 foot is the standard for a residential driveway.
I see. Which is what this used to be, right?
Right.
Does the angle of the entrance cause any difficulty with respect to traffic approaching from the west, or is it just not that much of an angle?
I don't believe it's that much of an angle. If it were any more, I think it would. It would be hard to make a right turn into the driveway.
Because that was the thing that kind of I
The one thing you
stepped
might want to
on.
consider, your trash pickup is going to use this driveway, correct?
They'll be able to use the alley since it's an open alley. So
Okay, even though the dumpster is at the back of the property,
Well, because it's an open alley, the dumpster will have to be moved where it's out of the alley. So the dumpster will be moved, so then we have a 20-foot alley that it can maneuver off of Indiana in and out.
if it's nothing but a passenger car or an SUV that uses that driveway, to me, the radius is probably not an issue. If you were going to try to maneuver the trash truck, then conceivably it might be.
I just had one question or one comment. Now you're changing your request, and after it's already been considered by urban design because of change in circumstances, being the alleyway. There was, as I recall at the hearing before the board, there was a little bit of concern about just in the night traffic or anything driving down 16th Street that somebody might accidentally think they were able to get into the back of go through that driveway and park or to go to the theater or do something else. And you had provided, and they'd recommended gating, having electronic gate. Are you going to, is it going to be gated, because your site plan now has it gated, is it going to continue to be gated?
That is what's submitted with urban design, is to have an electronic gate that will be
Okay,
used by the
that's
tenant.
all that was their concern, and mine too. Okay.
And where will the dumpsters be placed?
They'll be placed in the back
And they're in the-
on the property, so they can access, the trash trucks can access it by Indiana through the alley.
And a vehicle will be able to turn and be completely out of the right-of-way while they wait for the gate to open?
Correct.
Will
It'll
it-
go back against the building, and then it'll be a remote so it'll be something just for the tenants. We'll have the remotes.
But you won't hang over into traffic or impede traffic, does it? And I assume they'll be covering the sidewalk, but not the right-of-way.
Correct.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Is there anybody who's signed up to be heard?
No one.
I'll move approval. I do think that this kind of infill property has to have a little bit of leeway with respect to redevelopment. These sites are tight, and sometimes the, absolute letter of the ordinance just simply cannot work on them. Since this is something that's been looked at by the Urban Design Committee, and they were all right with it, it seems to me that the only change is an improvement in the sense that it eliminates that two-way concern.
Do we need to reference that all traffic, from this lot will exit through the alley, or is that just understood?
Well, since they don't have the variance to use it as a two-way, I think they'll have to do that. But if there's a benefit to writing it in, I'm all in favor of that.
I second it.
So, sorry, quick point of clarification. So since the application references those, you're making a motion to approve the application without the 22-foot drive variance?
Yes, if the application is still written to include that, then yes, that would be my motion.
That's how it's...
Approve it without the two-way drive.
We have a motion and a second. Are we clear? Okay. Register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you very much.
The next 7 applications are somewhat related. They're all dealing with fence height issue. Google is bringing a fiber optic cable network to Oklahoma City, and they're locating equipment huts around the city that will be connected by the fiber optics, and then these little huts are then a relay. From there, the internet service will go out to that surrounding area. So as we go through these, they're all similar, that they're all about the same thing. Each of them is a little different in the type of fence that's being proposed. So I'll read those until you...
Before we do that, I have some questions in my brain about how we're doing this. First of all, goody for Google for bringing fiber optics to Oklahoma City. It's a wonderful thing. These buildings are so ugly, and they're so industrial looking. And aren't they all in R1 properties?
Some are in, most of them are, yeah. One's in a PUD, I believe.
I mean, are these?
They're all city-owned facilities.
They're all city-owned.
All
Okay,
city-owned.
so the first one just is like a big thumb in my eye, right there behind the library, which is beautifully landscaped, backs right up to residential, okay.
We'll take them one at a time.
Okay.
First one is application at 5501 North Villa Avenue. They're proposing 8-foot black plastic coated chain link fence, a 1-foot portion added at the top leaning out as a climbing deterrent, and black slats in the fence to screen the view of the building.
Is the applicant present?
Right here.
Okay. You want to speak to your application? Okay.
Don't know that I have anything more to say.
JJ, now I don't see where this one talks about the slats, because I noticed some did and some don't specify that.
Under the statutory standards, in order to make the fence more aesthetically pleasing, we're proposing black chain link coated fence and adding black slats.
Okay.
The reason the application didn't talk to it in this case is because the slats don't need a variance.
Okay, oh, I see. It's only where they have to have the variance. Why would they need it some places and not others? What they back up to, or?
It depends on where the facility is located. If it's considered in the front yard, then it would need the variance on the slats.
Okay.
This would be a side or rear yard fence in this case.
And are they all going to have the barbed wire across the top?
Only one has barbed wire.
Okay.
So this is black chain link leaning out at the top, and then black slats in the fence at this location.
Okay, so will the building be visible at all?
Very minimally.
Okay.
You'd be able to see a little bit through the slats, but the idea is that the slats would screen the building.
Okay.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this application?
Sir, give us your name and address, please, for the
Good
record.
afternoon. Nick Bird. I live at 4417 Northwest 14th Street in Oklahoma City. That's right next to the south end of Jeffries Park, where there is one of these fiber optic buildings proposed. And I just was curious if you could describe what that building looks like, and also, is it going to incorporate a tower?
Yeah. It will be,
For the benefit of the board, can we reference which case?
he's on item 6.
Okay.
The buildings are 11 by 28. I believe they're like 9 feet tall. And they have a pebble aggregate finish to the outside of the building.
That was my question, really, just what the proposal was, and the need for the fence. But is this going to be located right along Northwest 14th? According to the diagram, where the fence, 8-foot fence is to be located between the fire station, and my house would be the first house to the east of the park there in Block 8. I just was concerned about how that would affect my property value.
Yeah, it would be located right adjacent to the parking lot for the fire station.
I see. And do you have any estimate when this construction will occur?
No, we're still working on the agreement with Google.
Thank you. Okay. Well, that answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public that wishes to speak on this matter, or any of these cases regarding fencing around these buildings?
With respect to the first one, the Belle Isle Library is kind of a informal after-school care for dozens of junior high school kids. Just in terms of maintenance of the facility, I'm not sure this is the best place to locate this thing. They're, I won't say destructive by nature, but, they are curious by nature, certainly. And I don't know. I hate to see this go here. I'd like to see another site for it, but I understand the limitations of finding city-owned property where it'll work. So, are we going to vote on these one by one?
We will.
My comment to that is it was designed to provide and anticipate, to protect from, in the safety environment, the way the design of everything was to protect from any such thing happening, even though there might be children nearby.
Any other discussion or comment?
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
I'll second it.
We are going to vote on these, consider them, and vote them individually. So case number 14174, I have a motion to approve and a second. Register your vote. The case is approved.
Excuse me, item 5, 14175, located at 11630 Southwest 15th Street. In this case, we're dealing with, it's an 8-foot standard chain link with 1-foot portion added at the top as a climbing deterrent.
Is there anyone here to speak on this application specifically?
No one has signed up.
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
I second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the application. Register your vote. The application is approved.
Item 6, 14176, located at 1500 North Meridian Avenue. This application is 8-foot black coated plastic with a portion at the top added and the black slats.
Anyone to speak on this application?
No one has signed up.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the application. The application is approved.
And item 7, 14177, this is 1114 Southwest 35th Street. In this case, we're proposing 8-foot chain link fence with 3 strands of barbed wire at the top for a climbing deterrent. We're using the barbed wire in this case because the facility that's there now is encircled with the same type of fence.
Is there anyone here to speak on this application?
No one has signed up.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the application. The application is approved.
Item 8, 14178, located at 1415 Southwest 89th Street. This application is 8-foot black plastic with the 1-foot portion at the top and the black slats.
Anyone here to speak on this application?
No one has signed up.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the application. The application is approved.
Item 9, 14179, located at 3924 Northwest 122nd Street. We're dealing with black plastic fence, 1-foot top, and the black slats.
Anyone here to speak on this application?
No one has signed up.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the application. The application is approved.
And finally, item 10, 14180, located 5400 Colfax Place. This fence will be 8-foot standard chain link with a 1-piece portion at the top for a climbing deterrent.
Anyone signed up to speak on this application?
No one has signed up.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the application. The application is approved.
Item 11, case 14197, request of 119 East Reno Investors for a variance to the minimum driveway width located at 119 East Reno Avenue.
Is the applicant or the representative present? Just give us your name and address for the record and speak to your application.
Thank you. My name is Timothy Neville Lee. I'm an associate with Alford Hall Monaghan Morris Architects, 29 East Reno, Oklahoma City.
Tell us what you want to do.
This application takes a fairly prominent building in Bricktown, one that's been disused for a number of years now, and looks to find a temporary use for it until the site is redeveloped, as there are plans to do so in the fairly near future. We look to make this a light touch renovation of the building, in other words, to make it as economical as possible. And the proposed use is primarily 13 leased parking spaces. In addition to that, there are 2 fairly modest retail or storage units. The reason that we are seeking a variance is that this does not conform to an ordinance for a 2-way drive aisle. Perhaps it would be useful if we could look at the plan of the building. The access is purely from the north of the building off the alley there. Access to the south of the building, there is an existing garage door on the south of the building, but access is no longer available because when the Bricktown was renovated around there, Reno was raised up to form a bridge over the canal, and there is no longer level access from the street. So access to the building for vehicles is entirely from the north side from Wanda Jackson Way. That is a very lightly trafficked alleyway. I don't have facts to back that up. This is purely anecdotal, but if you know the area, you will know that not many cars travel down Wanda Jackson Way. We are proposing that an opening is formed on the north side of the building for vehicles to pass through. And the issue really is that that throated area on the north side of the building that is there, I suppose, as a necessity of trying to create enough area in the retail unit to the north to make that viable, restricts that to a 12-foot width. Now, we see that more as a sort of elongated garage opening, if you like, that the cars have to pass through, rather than being for true 2-way traffic. Our rationale for that is that these 13 spaces are privately leased, that the drivers using that garage are going to be familiar with the situation, that they are making a turn from a very lightly trafficked alleyway and that therefore the risk of an accident at that point is fairly, much reduced. I don't know what more to say about that. I'm very happy to answer questions.
The retail spaces, would they be using the same 12-foot drive to enter or to be serviced by those businesses?
No, they wouldn't. There is no requirement for on-site parking. The 13 parking spots are purely privately leased and are not associated with the retail units on that building.
Do you anticipate that those spaces will be leased to business or to adjacent residences? Or, I mean, who are likely to be the tenants for the parking spaces?
The developer of this property is the same developer as the Plough building on 29 East Reno. That, as you may know, has a fairly limited amount of parking spaces, so there is an opportunity for a deal to be done with incoming tenants in the Plough building where they might lease these spaces.
Sure. So the only traffic through this 12-foot drive is one of those 13 leased spaces?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
You also presented this to the Bricktown Urban Design Committee, correct?
We did on a technicality. It was actually approved administratively. We only found out that we would need to seek variance after we went through the code review, and that triggered it needing to be reviewed by the BUDC. So I stood here about a week ago and presented it then.
What, your introductory remarks that have caught my attention, you're thinking that there will be some other use made of this property in the future?
Yes, I don't know the details of that, but the property effectively bridges over the canal to the site on the corner of, I forget what it's called now, Johnny Bench Drive and East Reno, and there are air rights over the canal.
So in what way
It is Mickey Mantle, I beg your pardon.
would our variance affect that or be affected by that?
I can't imagine how it would.
Okay. Okay.
You did characterize it as a temporary use, and so you're anticipating that at some point in the future, the use will change, and that property will be developed for a different use.
That is correct.
Okay.
But the variance is not temporary. The variance is there for, as long as the property's there. So that was my
You could condition the variance that it would be, once the use changes, that the variance would go away.
I like that idea.
Condition it to the existing use as for leased parking.
That be acceptable to you?
It would.
Is there anybody else who wants to be heard on this matter?
Nobody has signed up.
If not, then I will move for approval.
Second.
Conditioned as noted.
Yes, conditioned on.
I have a motion and a second. You are approved. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 12, case 14198, request of Oklahoma City Housing Services Redevelopment Corporation for a variance to the minimum lot size, lot width, lot coverage, building setbacks, and permit a detached accessory building forward of the rear wall of the primary structure, 147 Northeast 15th Street.
I'm Neela Crank Clements with Positively Paseo, 400 Northwest 23rd Street.
Let's go ahead and speak to the application.
Okay, sure. So we're a nonprofit community housing development organization. Our mission is to revitalize inner city neighborhoods. We've been working for 30 years in Paseo neighborhood. We helped turn that around. We're also working in Classen Tenpin and now Classen's North Highland Park for the last couple of years. With our proposal, our intent is to preserve the character and density of Classen's North Highland Park neighborhood by creating homeownership opportunities at the corner lot or corner of Northwest, Northeast 15th and Walnut. We're proposing to build 2 smaller homes, 950 square feet. One home will face Northeast 15th and will follow the historic setback pattern of surrounding homes on either side as well as those across the street. We will also follow the fenestration pattern, materials, finished height, and full width front porch, and will closely match the footprint of the home that previously existed on the land. The second home we're proposing will face Walnut Avenue at the back of that lot. We did do some research and found in the Sanborn maps 1922 to 1949, there was a similar situation on the lot just to the north of ours, the corner of Northeast 16th and Walnut. They did have a smaller house at the back of the lot that faced Walnut, as well as the northwest corner of Northeast 14th. Again, there was a smaller house at the back of a large house that faced Walnut Avenue. We feel that our proposal follows the purposes of the intent of the comprehensive plan. And we did want to say, about 2 years ago or so, whenever we acquired this at the tax sale, we went to the neighborhood association. Our intent is typically to go back with what was there historically, and on this particular lot, there was one house, one larger home, 1,500 square feet. And since then, we have done further research, looking at the Sanborn maps, trying to answer a lot of buyers are looking for smaller homes. We're looking to make the inner city neighborhoods a little more dense, and this is what we thought would be the best scenario for this property. The homes will not exceed R2 density limits and will be sold to home buyers. They will not be rented. And we've heard some concern about square footage sale prices in the neighborhood, and these will sell for at least what the other homes are going for now. High quality materials. And we do also follow the design guidelines as provided by the City of Oklahoma City Strong Neighborhoods Initiative. And I think that's about it. Any questions?
Let me stop you right there and let the board members know that I just, as this case was being called, I was handed a petition that we have not seen before. I was handed some letters of opposition that are unsigned, and we have 4 citizens that are signed up to speak, and a series of photographs that I guess are of homes that are in the area. So none of us have seen this material before, and you have not had the benefit of seeing this. So I would recommend that we go ahead, and the 4 citizens that have taken time out of their day to be here today, that we listen to them, and then we make a decision about whether to go ahead and act on this request or whether to continue it for more information. So I would first call, is the gentleman in the wheelchair? He's taken care of, okay. Next is Shirley Denson here. That'd be fine. Just have him come up to the microphone. He can speak on your behalf. If you would, just go ahead and give us your name and address for the record and speak to your concern.
My name is Cliff Higgs, and I'm a resident of the neighborhood. I also own a couple of empty lots in the neighborhood as well. Obviously, you have the petition in front of you that many of the citizens of this neighborhood have signed. I would say that the neighborhood itself is probably only 50% occupied lots versus homes, somewhere thereabouts. So I think the number of people that have signed that petition actually speaks much louder than I can. But I'd like to point out, Positively Paseo, this is not anything about that organization. It's a great organization. But we think, as citizens of the neighborhood, that they have stepped out somewhat from their traditional role. These homes will be sold most likely at market prices. They will not serve to help lower income buyers. I understand that as a nonprofit, they have to do what they can to generate revenue to help other parts of the city, but notwithstanding the fact that at one point this lot may have had multiple homes on it, there's a lot of homes still left in this neighborhood, and there are homes being built right now that are 14, 15, 1,800, over 2,000 square feet. And not to characterize these as micro homes, but a home of less than 1,000 square feet, and the number of variances and adjustments that they've asked, we simply feel it detracts from the historical character of the neighborhood. It will affect property values from of people that bought homes and lots in that addition that are simply looking to build a standard size home there for their family. And, I just, again, would reiterate that the number of citizens of the city of Oklahoma City that have signed that petition, the neighborhood simply does not want this property developed this way.
Thank you very much. I would next call on Mr. Higgs. You are Mr. Higgs. Pardon me. Okay. My next person that's requesting to speak is David. Is it Gilo?
Chairman,
Yes.
I don't think that the lady you called first wanted to give up her time. I think she just wanted to let him speak first.
Did he represent your concerns? No. You have? I have. Okay, well then why don't you please come up and share those with us. Just come to the microphone and give us your name and address for the record.
I'm sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Shirley Denson. I'm president of Class of North Highland Neighborhood Association. I have been for 11 years, going on 12. The reason I didn't sign that letter, because I was bandying about, should I sign for myself and the petitioners? And I was going to ask the question. I got here late, flustered, but I was going to ask this lady or somebody, do I sign just my name or my name plus for the petitioners? So that's why the brief was not signed.
That's fine. Just go ahead and express your thoughts and your concerns.
Ms. Crank, and again, she's done a wonderful job in the neighborhood. This is by no means negative against her. It's just we have concerns with her putting 2 homes and a detached garage on a one lot on that corner. Now, she spoke of a home that was behind there facing Walnut. That was a different lot. It was an entirely different lot. But it would set a precedent to have 3 homes, 2 homes and a detached garage on one corner lot. And I would like to add that that street, Walnut, is our most heavily traveled street in the neighborhood. It carries traffic off of the interstate to the Capitol Complex buildings every morning and every evening. In fact, we had to put a number of years ago stop signs at 16th Place, north and south, to stop the traffic because we couldn't get out or in when they were going to work and getting off work. So it would also take away from the characteristic of the homes. We've deviated so far with homes in the neighborhood not looking like the ones that are there. And I'm sorry I didn't give you a picture of my home or a picture of the homes that have been built that have sold for over $200,000. I would also like to speak for the developer, Mr. Tariq Wazan. He had to go to a meeting, but he left his rendering. He owns the lot south of Paseo's lot on 14th and Walnut. This is a house they're getting ready to build. And his objection was that it would greatly affect his sale of this home. And he has 2 homes. He remodeled one, and it was featured in the real estate section of the Daily Oklahoman. Beautiful home. He built one right next door to it. The first one I spoke of was on the market 0 days. So these large homes are having no trouble being sold. I included pictures of the 2 beautiful homes Positively Paseo has added to our neighborhood, and they sold. There's not a problem with selling a large house. And when Ms. Crank Clemens came to our meeting, she did tell us it was just going to be 1 home there. And so that's what we expected. She does beautiful work, and we are very grateful. We just don't want to set a precedent to allow there's 2 other corner lots, maybe 3, 4, and if a precedent is set to allow them to do that, then it's just we're going to start looking like a patchwork quilt.
Thank you very much for your comments and for attending today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I respond, or do you need?
I have one other person signed up to speak. Is it David Glover? Welcome. Just give us your name and address for the record, please.
David Glover, and I own 2 lots on 14th Street between Walnut and Stiles, around 314 and also 224. Nice put names with some faces here. That's good. The average size home over time has gone up and down. In fact, these sizes would be closer to, the average size home back in the 50s and 40s. For the density for the neighborhood, there's so many empty lots. There's so many renters. Having home ownership and actually having homes there would be quite nice. Also, as everyone says, the quality of what they do is very good. There's a concept that you guys probably know about called eyes on the street. The more people that are in their neighborhood, and the more porches and the people that can be seen both ways, the better for the neighborhood because people are watching out for it. Having a house pointing Walnut is actually kind of, I think, a benefit and would be nice for the neighborhood to have because there's not many houses that actually look that direction. Also, with all the new sidewalks going in, the neighborhood is really coming back. Currently, I think a single-family house with a garage apartment would be available, but this would, I think, look a lot better. I think there's a lot of fear of change, and I can totally understand that, and I understand where the people in the neighborhood that are living there are saying, but I really think this creates a lot of opportunity for home ownership at a high-quality level. The thing about it is that when we're talking about affordability for homes, actually, 1,000-square-foot home is going to be much more affordable than probably any other house in the entire neighborhood. So I think that it would really help, even at market price, it would actually help people be able to handle it. So I think it's a nice idea. They do a really good job, and they have a great track record. And, I would really like to see something like this. Thank you.
Ms. Clements.
I just want to say thank you so much, Cliff, Shirley, David. I really appreciate hearing your thoughts. I did want to speak to a few of their concerns. Cliff specifically said these would be market rate homes. These are actually going to be part of our low to moderate income down payment assistance program. These will be sold to families that have a certain income level or below. So these will be opportunities for those families. Maybe renters in the neighborhood typically kind of end up buying our homes. We really love that. Also, I think his name's Tariq. He's doing the development at 14th and Walnut. Yes. He's rehabbed a home and built a new home on 14th Street, and they're beautiful. I will say the home he's proposed on 14th and Walnut, which would be the northeast corner, it's actually 3 lots, very large frontage. I did see the plans, and it is a suburban-style home. It does not honor the character of the neighborhood, and our proposed homes certainly do. Homes in the neighborhood range from just over 1,000 square feet to nearly 3,000 square feet. So we have a wide berth there. But I would just hope that you would look upon this application favorably. David did say, Mr. Glover said that a lot of people fear change, and I understand that. I myself do as well, but we think we're doing the best for this lot here. All the lots surround, let's see, Northeast 14th to 16th, there are 12 lots, 8 of which are vacant. So no, we do not know what's going to happen with those other lots, but we think our proposed plan is something that would benefit the neighborhood. Thank you.
This is not an HP district, correct?
It is not an HP district. However, because we receive federal funding for our projects, our plans and specs and materials must go before the Oklahoma State Historic Preservation Office. We have to get approval from them before the federal funds can be released to us. So although it's not HP, they do still have the same sort of standards.
Mr. Chairman, I believe there was somebody else that wanted to be heard on this issue.
Thank you. If you would, just give us your name and address for the record and speak to your concern.
Marlis Hakim at 2805 Northwest 59th presently. But I own the property just north of the property being developed. And I didn't know a whole lot about what was going to go on today, but I would just say I would prefer that it were a single home behind. Because if we develop what we own, we would put a single-family home. Possibly a garage apartment would be acceptable, but I would prefer myself to have a single-family home there. And the proposed one that the guy's doing on 14th, I wouldn't call it suburban. yeah, it looks pretty standard to the area. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One more comment, if you don't mind. You know what? I just completely forgot what I was going to say.
Let me ask the board members.
I remember, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, this lot is currently zoned R2, which would allow us to build a duplex, but there are no other duplexes within a two-block area, and we always try to make sure we go back with something that would fit. We do not feel that a duplex would be appropriate on this lot, and there's again, we feel like our proposal is the best opportunity.
Thank you. You may come back up.
Shirley Denson again. One of the pictures I gave you is duplex at the corner of Northeast 16th and Walnut, right behind 15th. That's a duplex. Very nice duplex. We have another duplex that's being remodeled 2 doors from me. I'm at 208 Northeast 15th. East is 212 and the duplex is 216. That's a duplex. But you do have a picture of a duplex.
Thank you. Discussion or questions for any of the...
If we could ask the applicant, you said that you had originally considered building a single structure.
That is correct, because typically that is, well, let's see, that is all we have done as a nonprofit. We have built single-family, one-story, and a few two-story homes, yes.
So tell me a little bit about what it was that went into the process of changing your mind about that.
Sure. Well, that home, I think, was around 1,400 to 1,500 square feet. We did look at the surrounding square footage of all the other homes to kind of see what would fit there. We would end up building a smaller home. We would not build a large home on that lot. But the research and the Sanborns, because their surrounding lots did have homes facing Walnut, we do want to increase density. There's a movement toward that. And we're wanting to keep homes affordable for families. These would probably be single people or a couple with a child. Home prices are through the roof in that neighborhood, which is great for a lot of the people in the neighborhood. We want to make sure we're still able to bring people in the neighborhood or people that are renting there that they can afford to live there.
So it was part of trying to stay true to your mission.
It is, yes. Yes. We do have one of the residents that serves on our board to give input, as well as the other neighborhoods in which we work. The neighborhood residents are on our board, so we're hearing from them.
Can I ask you why, having changed your mind, you didn't go back to the neighborhood to meet with them and acquaint them with your change in plans?
Well, what I'm hearing is it kind of sounds like they want a single family, and that's not what we feel is appropriate for that lot. So we would like to move forward with our proposed plan.
This reminds me of the Cottage District, right? I mean, it does. It's because it's not an HP, so there's no controls over design that would protect these older neighborhoods that have existed in different forms for, a long period. And so there's a struggle for identity, and I've been sitting here looking at this aerial as various people have commented about the lots and the access and the highways and where this is in proximity. And this is a neighborhood that's, it has a fortunate location for, the next development cycle. And so that's what the real struggle here amounts to. I'm really torn. So to try to get away from the opinions, I'm going to focus on my comments. I'm going to focus on the facts of this. This is an R2 zoned property. It has been and will continue to be unless it were rezoned to a single family home to allow for the density that's being proposed. If a duplex were constructed, the 2 duplexes couldn't be sold because they're on a single lot. And so really, in her application, I think what strikes me is that the only reason they're forced to request a variance is because they're going to split the lot. One person commented that they wanted to see a single-family home as opposed to anything else. That's precisely what's being constructed, is a single-family home. There's just two of them. And the garage is shared the way that the layout looks only because of the small lot size. It is a separate garage. It has a 1-hour rated firewall between them. It's just a single structure. I do not know, I am not familiar with this small area well enough to feel like I understand the character of the neighborhood, and that concerns me. And please, Ms. HOA President, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this area, this little pocket, is essentially bounded by what is 13th Street on the south, Lincoln on the east, to go all the way to Phillips. Stiles is where it stops? Okay. And then it really cuts off. Is this a park to the north or an old farm? What is that? Okay. Okay. Okay, that's the Harn right there. Okay. Okay. Highway. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a very small area, and so, like I said, I can't comment on the character. What I see from the application is that, to me, the statutory standards appear to be met. I can walk through these steps and I can see that the 4 requirements that we can analyze, I can put legs here. The one thing I have trouble with as it relates to this is that on the hardship element is a little challenging. You could build a duplex, right? And that's essentially what we're trying to get a variance from. But I understand why you're doing what you're trying to do as well. So I'm a little torn in that regard. I think my discomfort of approving the application stems from I genuinely do not feel comfortable at this point without actually going out here to be able to feel like I could comment on whether or not this would affect the public good or the comprehensive plan or things of that nature. So my inclination is, given the amount, I haven't seen the petition yet. I don't know if it's circulated. How many signatures are on that petition? That's very challenging for me because it's, to me, it seems that these people have spoken as to their opinion on whether or not it would not be a substantial detriment. And that makes it hard to support. It's not that I don't want to support it, and I think I'm probably not the only one who feels like there is a need for this type of housing, particularly in these areas. After what we've seen, these wars waged in the Cottage District, there's clearly a need for homes that serve another element of our community. And so I'm really troubled by that, but I can't ignore what appears to be, looking at the aerial and the area described, it would appear to be nearly a majority of the supporting and surrounding neighbors. That's why I can't support the application. It's not because I don't agree with what you're trying to do or I don't appreciate it or that I don't feel like you've met necessarily that you can't meet all 4 of the variance elements. It's that I get hung up here. So that's where I'm at.
Where I thought you were going with this is to say you thought we ought to continue the case so that we can review the additional evidence that's been submitted.
And I certainly would support that too.
Which is what I think ought to happen.
Okay.
And I would urge all of you to go out and look at the area. I mean, this is an area that I'm really familiar with, and I have a hard time with the analogy to the Cottage District for a number of reasons that will become evident to you when you go look at it. This area is, as you say, located in a place that would seem to make it ideal for redevelopment, and yet it has sat, without the benefit of that kind of investment for these many years. And I think it would be a good idea if we would continue this case for 2 weeks and give ourselves a chance not only to read through what's been provided to us, which we haven't had the chance to look at, but to go and look at the property as well.
I'm agreeable to that. And my comments on the cottage are just reflective of there's a struggle here between what this neighborhood is going to be. We've seen that in other places where there's not an HOA sort of check and balance, and there's not a clear development pattern. And evident from the home that was presented on a drawing versus the home that's on our application, there's clearly a struggle for that identity here as well.
I would support a continuance.
And we not only want the applicant to be agreeable to the continuance at an agreed-upon date, but the representatives from the neighborhood, this date, we would want it to be convenient for you too. Our next meeting is April the 7th. The meeting following is April the 21st. The meeting following is May the 5th. So if one
April
of those...
7th.
Meetings are always on Thursdays.
I would ask that I get copies of everything that was submitted by the Neighborhood Association. I'm sure if I asked them, they would give it to me, but I do want to be able to see that document, all those documents as well, please.
And I would ask, those of you that are here, there were some letters of opposition that were not signed. Were those just...
Oh, it was a copy. It was one copy. I gave a copy to each, and I would be happy to sign it. Like I said, I didn't know if I should sign my name and for the petitioner, so that's why I didn't put anything there. I didn't want to...
Okay, that's fine. If you have additional, they can submit that, and it'll be a part of what we see at the next meeting. Is April the 7th agreeable to everyone present? Okay, I have
I'll make a motion that we continue the application to April the 7th.
Have a motion and a second to continue to April the 7th. You're continued to April the 7th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think, just got the one. Item 13, case 14-199, request of Sam Gresham for a variance to the required number of parking spaces at 2023 South Agnew Avenue.
My name is Sam Gresham, 400 Northwest 23rd, here to represent the owner of the property. I have some exhibits I'd like to pass out. This is an aerial photo that's a little clearer than the one
Feel
in the
free.
packet.
Just give them to Janice, and she can pass them around.
Our application, first of all, let me point out in the docket, it has, on the schedule, it has 2023 South Agnew. The address is 2823. I don't know if that means anything, but the docket has a misprint for the address. Our request is a variance to the parking ordinance. We're underparked, but not by a great deal. The exhibits I passed out show on-street parking that is free and easily accessible by anyone in the neighborhood. Our purpose here is that the current owner wants to operate an event center. The event center is different from what had previously been agreed to by this board for a parking variance. We came before you about 2 years ago for a bar in this building, and the bar never came about. They never found the money to build it or finish it. The property was sold and sold to an owner who now proposes to do an event center. But in both cases, as it is true in the bar, it's also true here. We're underparked, but not by very much, according to parking ordinance. We do have 45 within a reasonable distance of this building, 45 on-street parking spaces in front of other businesses. The operations of an event center, as you probably would be able to guess, are not during business hours, not 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, mostly in the evenings, mostly weekends, well, exclusively weekends and evenings. For that reason, our confidence is that parking is available. It's just not on our property entirely.
Is it public parking?
It's public parking.
I see.
It's in front of Tyson's, which is across the street, directly to the east. They have, we've marked it on there, it's some 28 parking spaces or so. In front of Agnew Door and Plywood, they have 8 parking spaces. I think there's 14 on one side and 22 on another. There's 45 total of those within a reasonable distance of this property. The owner also owns the property to the east, or, pardon me, to the west of this, of his existing parking lot. It's zoned R1, and it was the advice of staff that we not try to rezone that, which was one of his intended solutions. He does own also a tract at 27th and Agnew, which is quite large and zoned properly for parking, but it's off-site and wouldn't be, it wouldn't meet the ordinance for parking for this property. So we have measures in place to provide parking adequate to our event center. We just don't have it on the site.
Just out of curiosity, is there anyone here to speak in opposition on this application?
There's nobody signed up. Anybody here wish to speak on this matter? Okay.
Do any other members of the board have comment? I'll make a motion to approve the application.
Motion and a second to approve the application.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Item 14, case 14200, request of David Ledbetter for a variance to encroach 25-foot front building setback at 10909 North May Avenue.
Dave Ledbetter, 2612 Drakestone, Oklahoma City. I'm here to ask permission to erect a new entry vestibule onto the existing restaurant, which is the former dugout.
A real Northwest Oklahoma City relic.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yes, it is.
As a big proponent of vestibules and restaurants, the only question that I had about this at all, and I'm fairly sure the answer, there's not any concern at all about sight lines or anything with where this is located, is there?
Not at all. If you look at the rendering, the outdoor patio extends out even further than the vestibule.
Is there anybody who wants to be heard on this?
No.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the application. Congratulations, you're approved. If there be no other business before the board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Register your vote. We are adjourned.